Normally, as all of the previous speakers, I will start with a hello, my name is. But, well, you already know my name and the topic of my speech, so I would like to talk about how identity is shaped by social media. Apart from the hello part, maybe I should send a waving emoji to you all so that you actually listen to what I'm saying. So, hello everyone! Nowadays, we all use social media. I'm sure that the majority of you gathered here has already scrolled through some social media platforms already. Wasn't it? Raise these hands. Raise these hands. Have you? Yeah, that's what I thought. We all do. It has become an inseparable part of our daily lives and routines. I think we can all agree that we dedicate a part of our lives to social media. And with that comes our identity. Identity. That's the point. What is identity? How is it shaped? And what does social media have to do with all this? I'd like to start with a definition. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, identity means the fact of being or feeling that you are a particular type of a person or organization, or the qualities that make a person or organization different from others. Although one can understand this definition in numerous ways, I believe that identity consists of everything that creates us all as human beings. Let's take conversations as an example. The matters of how we speak, what we say, and in general, why do we communicate, all sums us up as people. It creates our identities. And the same goes with the behavior when in a group. One will become the leader, the mediator, or just an observer. But as you can see, it's all a choice. And I think the choices are really important. The last 10 years, social media's popularity has been growing, as we all know, because, well, we all use social media, right? According to the research done by KPIOS, an organization which specializes in analyzing global behaviors and trends, there are more than 5 billion social media users, which equates to around 60% of the world's population. But we can't forget that, well, I think at least half of you here have multiple accounts. So the numbers aren't as specific, but still, I think it's a gigantic part of the population. According to the same research, when it comes to new users, the annual numbers end up in around 200 million of new users, which is about 4% of the whole population. If you thought about it more, that's around 6.5 people joining each second. But I would like to move on to the main topic of my speech, which is how social media impacts our identity, or rather, how it creates a completely new one. I'd like you to answer it by yourselves. To post or not to post? That is the main question. If yes, then what to post and how to post it, and if not, well, why? What is the most important in my perception is the content posted. Even the big influencers have to choose what to post. And I think social media has made our lives a set of questions. We have to make the choices because the variety of types of content which can be posted is immense. Some private vacation pictures, or educational reels, or even some often thought to be dumb comedy content. We can post everything. The algorithm takes it all. And the choices I've mentioned are one of the points I would like to tackle today the most. Let's take this hypothetical girl. Let's call her Susie, for example. Susie is a 16-year-old attending high school, just like the majority of you here. Of course, she has social media accounts on multiple platforms, but she has never really posted anything. But now, having been persuaded by her best friend, she decides to start posting. Her content remains private. It revolves around her personal life, and thus her account remains private. She posts whenever something happens in her life, the exciting moments, such as some meetup with her friends or an important event, just like this one. It all gets posted, but as you can probably see, not one of the situations I listed has a negative connotation. They're all positive, and that's my main point. We only tend to post the positive of our lives, and not the negatives. In Susie's case, it doesn't impact her followers so much, as they're all her friends. as her account is private. So they know what's going on in her life. They basically know that even though she doesn't post them, she still has the influence. But what about the big influencers? Of course, their situations are to some extent similar to Susie's, as they also have friends following them. But what about the rest? What about the big part of their followers who follow them just for their content? And of course, some people can distinguish what is and how it's life, but some, unfortunately the bigger part, take it for granted and think that, well, if they show it, it has to be their whole life. And, well, that's not entirely true. It may lead to some serious consequences, such as depression or just feeling like an outsider when you don't even know what's going on. I'd like for you to remember that what is posted to social media is an absolute nonsense, and we should not compare ourselves to them, the influencers. I hope my idea is slightly uprising in your heads. That when one decides to post, they create another identity. They have one, the realistic one, which, for example, attends school or basically is themselves. But at the same time, there's the latter, the mediated one. Isn't that crazy that we have literally two identities? I know it may sound kind of odd, but as I've mentioned before, we post only a part of our lives. I believe it should stay that way because the digital footprint is going crazy, and social media, and like for you to, as I've mentioned before, there is around 6 billion of users of social media, and there is around 8 billion people on the planet. So you're trying to tell me there are more than 12 billion identities? A literal mind blow. But seriously, having two identities may be kind of cool if you think about it. But unfortunately, there are also some downsides to this. The influencers tend to overuse the whole dual identity thing, to this extent that it's visible with a clear eye. So that's another point what I would like for you to remember from this speech, that we shouldn't compare ourselves to them, as the content posted by especially the bigger influencers, tends to be very deceived. And we, as human beings, tend to compare ourselves to them, the influencers, our lives to them, our material status to theirs, and so on. But what is important is that their identities are made just for show, to gain views and money. I think I could summarize my view towards the content posted by the influencers by the word bogus. The majority of you may not know the word, but basically it's an antonym to genuine, which means ungenuine. There's a big word nowadays, which is used every now and then, but I don't know if everybody knows the definition of it, and that's catfishing. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, catfishing is the practice of pretending on social media to be someone different, especially in order to trick or attract others. But the definition available on Proofpoint, however, states that catfishing is the fabrication of a false online identity by a cybercriminal for the purposes of deception or fraud. Identity is the key word here. Catfishing happens when one's medial identity does not quite reflect their realistic one. So basically, they lie on the internet. Why would one even do that? But some do, just because they want the money or they want people to talk about them. Because it often happens with influencers who show their ideal lives, even though they don't even live them. It may also happen by retouching their photos or simply posting content which is not true, a literal fabrication of a lie. Or I think it's an important issue to be spread, especially now as artificial intelligence's popularity has been growing exponentially nowadays. Influencers don't often admit that actually AI has helped them to modify or retouch their photos. When someone points it out, for example, in the comments, they often get deleted. To summarize, I think that social media is becoming a dangerous tool at a very rapid pace. The possibilities we have of creating the second identity are being used to trick rob, or cause diseases and conditions. But why not try using social media in a positive way? For example, take up coffee and start sharing your progress. Become a fashionista and find your true self in fashion. Or maybe start traveling and leave everything behind. There are numerous possibilities, and yet, as a humanity, we tend to pick the worst one possible. Thank you.